to extend. So I'm just going to share my screen. You'll see I'm back in my training day Gibbon installation. In the meantime, I've been timed out, so I'm just going to log back in. And if I head to System Admin and I go to Manage Modules, you'll see the list of inbuilt modules that ship with Gibbon by default. When I first started thinking about the architecture of Gibbon, I was really heavily influenced by WordPress, which I think back then did a great job of plugins. I think now the plugin situation in WordPress is a bit messy because it's become so commercialized and there's so many competing interests. But sort of back in 2010, 11, there was just, you know, a great WordPress plugin for everything you could think of. And if there wasn't, you could build it, but that almost always wasn't necessary. And likewise, Firefox had a great plugin ecosystem. So in Gibbon, you can head to our website and go to the Extend section, and there you'll see a list of 20-something additional modules. These are the things that we don't imagine every school needs all once, and so we didn't want to cause a bloat in the core system, but they're things that we think are useful and interesting and that schools have asked for, or you know, we've built along the way. I'm not going to go through this list item by item, but I would like to highlight a couple things as I go through that I think are useful modules. We'll then use the free learning module, which is the most revised and developed and active module. And we'll use that as an example of why modules are interesting, how you can use them, and yeah, how Gibbon supports interesting pedagogies. It is worth saying, if you just use the standard modules in Gibbon, what you get is quite a standard school. Working at ICHK, I have a real deep interest in sustained innovation that leads to real, genuine school change. And so some of the modules here, like free learning and flexible learning, which Harry's been building recently under Sandra's tutelage, those allow you to build a school experience that's very different. And I think that's part of the big potential of Gibbon, is to help support educators who want school to be different to the way that it is. That's a whole other talk, but I think that it all aligns well. So just as an example, the alumni module, if you plug it in and set it up, it lets former users of the school, former students, enroll as alumni so that the school can stay in contact with them. The credentials module, which is really aimed at younger students, allows you to store in an encrypted fashion students' passwords for different systems so that parents and teachers can help them to log in. So if you're sort of primary 3, primary 4 kids who struggle to remember their passwords, that's a great way for them to get help. Flexible learning, as I mentioned, allows you to create a grid of units that participants can complete in any order and at any time that they want. It grew out of free learning, which is a structured approach for guiding student learning by choice, and flexible learning is freer and more open than free learning. Maybe we should have called it freer learning or freest learning. I'll show you free learning in a bit. The help desk allows you to have your users create help desk tickets that can then be assigned to a technician who can help them and track that. InfoGrid gives you homepage dashboard grids that allow you to give visual sets of links to different groups of people. The Mastery Transcript is another great example of innovation. The Mastery Transcript Consortium is a US-based organization of around 400 schools. They're aiming to overthrow the dominance of the current grade-based transcript and replace it with a mastery transcript, which is based much more on student choice, on student personal development and growth. Yes, Sandra.
Kelvin was quickly asking again the difference between the free and flexible learning.
Yep. Okay. So I will install free learning and show you that, Kelvin, and then I'll show a screenshot of flexible learning after that so that you can see the difference. So we will come back to that. Thanks. Meet the Teacher is a UK-based online service for parent-teacher consultation, evening bookings. That's one big missing element in Gibbon, but it's such a unique and complex workflow. I'm not sure will ever build it. Someone might, but Meet the Teacher is a paid service, and you can use this module to synchronize your data into Meet the Teacher, and then offer parents a one-click, no password, single sign-on for booking. So some external integration, similar with Moodle there, integrating with Moodle. Query Builder allows you to create your own SQL queries that you can run to extract data in Gibbon into Excel without having to give people database access. We maintain a library of SQL statements that's available with a value-added license. You can apply for one of those from our website. It's a paid service, the queries, because we do spend time maintaining and adding to that library, but we're happy to offer discounts, especially to schools that are constrained in terms of resources. This is the older reporting module that's written by Andy Statham. For a long time, that was the sort of Gibbon go-to reporting tool. We're now doing that in the core more. And finally, Trip Planner, created by Ray Clark, who, like Harry, is a former student of ICHK, allows you to create requests for trips in school, which can then be approved and covers all the medical and sort of emergency requirements of taking kids out of school.
You skipped Stream.
I did skip Stream. Stream is a module that lets you share photos and engage your community with photo and video, rather than having to rely on an external service like Twitter or Facebook, which can lead to all sorts of privacy concerns. Yeah, so that one was created at TIS by Sandra a while back. It's a really nice piece. Yeah, actually, it was a bit of a collaboration, in fact, yes. So there's an overview of some of the modules. You'll notice there's no themes listed here, but hopefully over time we'll add some themes now that we're rebuilding the theme engine, which we discussed earlier. So to give a specific example of a module, I will click on the free learning, and because I'm using the cutting edge code, I'm going to get the latest one. If you're using stable, just keep an eye on the version number there. That has now downloaded, and it's downloaded as, yeah.
It's important to note that those are the minimum version requirements too.
Yes.
So even though it says V17, let's say on higher education, it still works for
yes.
20.
Yeah, thanks. So that has downloaded the zip file. When I extract that zip file, I get a folder. Oh, I've ended up with it twice. I get a folder that contains the module folder. I place this module folder. Are you not seeing my screen? Oh, has my screen stopped sharing there?
I think you're only sharing the browser.
Oh, yes, sorry. Screen sharing's become the bane of my life. It's where I make all my mistakes. There we go. Okay, so I had the zip file on my desktop. I extracted it into the module container folder, and inside I see the actual module folder. I'm going to drag that into my Gibbon installation because it's local. If it was on a remote server, I might use FTP or rsync to push that way. So within my Gibbon installation, I'm going to go to modules, and I'm going to drag that folder in there. When I come back to my interface, if I reload the page, I now see this not installed module. I get a little description, and I can install the module. One click, green confirmation, it is installed. It's now going to appear in my main menu. If we just take a moment to look at that module in Manage Permissions, we'll see it comes with a range of default permissions. So let's have a look. Free learning. We'll see all of the actions here that make up the module, as we were discussing in an earlier section. We see the roles, and we see it's pre-populated with what we feel is a sensible starting point. That helps you to roll out quicker, but of course you can turn things on and off as you like. So entering the free learning unit now, we will see that there is no content available. But I've actually got some free learning content because I did want to demo this module specifically because I think it is a real star within Gibbon in all the different things you can do within Gibbon. So I have previously exported a learning map, which consists of about 90 units. And I'm going to import those. At the moment, there's no centralized way. If you're interested in free learning, there's no centralized way to share units, although that's something that Sandra and I are looking to build in the sort of medium-term future. But all the units that we've created at ICHK, if you like what you see, we're happy to share those with you if you want to try and get up and running with free learning quickly. This file is pretty big. 153 megabytes. So even though it's local, it's going to take a few moments to upload. Maybe I could have chosen a smaller map that's less likely to go wrong. But here we go. I like living on the edge. So we'll give that, I'd say, a few more moments. What we will see when that loads up is a list of units that can be browsed in different ways as a list, a grid, or a map. And it's really the map that I think shows the potential of free learning. So feel free to say something if you find silent, waiting, awkward. There we go. It's arrived. So I can now browse units and I can say, show me this ICT map that I just loaded. And it will appear here momentarily as a map of interconnected units. There we go. For most students and most teachers, this is not what learning looks like. Learning is much more linear and it's never quite as clearly expressed as this. The basic premise of free learning is that students can navigate between all of these units, starting with the ones that are circled in blue, which in this case is only this one unit. They can sign up for a unit with a class teacher. The unit guides them to do to engage with some materials, to learn some concepts, and ultimately to create some evidence about what they've learned. Here's the content, here's a task at the end, and they submit the evidence in the Enroll tab. As units are completed by students, they go green, and students who browse their map, or teachers who browse a student's map, see this personalized completion of green maps as they navigate around the map. So for us, this is one of the really exciting things that we do at ICHK. All students in year 7, 8, and 9 have free learning classes. They start in year 7 with the ICT map, and in years 8 and 9, we introduce them to other maps like physical education and English and science, human technologies, and they start making their own choices. And so this is one of the ways that we try and train students to be more independent learners at ICHK. So here, hopefully you see an example of changing the way that Gibbon works by installing a module. You've seen some of the process. If you're interested in thinking a little bit about the back end, I connected earlier to SQL Ace as a database client. You'll see what's happened when I've installed free learning is it's given me some new tables to store different kinds of information. And if I ever uninstall Gibbon, it will give me the choice to remove that data or leave it hanging in the system. I'll show you just quickly. If I go to System Admin and Manage Modules, I can remove that module and you'll see the tables there. Modules are updated, some very frequently. Free learning's been through a couple of hundred revisions in the last 5 years. Some get updated less frequently. At the moment, these additional modules, Gibbon won't alert you when there's an update. You need to keep an eye on extend. That's something we're going to improve on down the line. If you do see and extend a new version of the module, updating it is as simple as downloading the module and dropping it in place of the old module. If you were to then refresh this page, this row would light up green saying that there is an update. You could click on the package and click on the update button, and it will then update the database to match the latest version of the files. In coming back to Kelvin's question about flexible learning, I'm just going to pause my screen sharing quickly. I'm going to jump into production here, and I just want to make sure there's no confidential data on screen as I do this. That's great. So I'm going to resume sharing now. So in flexible learning, you have units just like you have in free learning, but the units aren't structured. Students don't need to follow a route on the map. They can jump in at any point. They also don't need to enroll in units, and the unit doesn't always end with them having a teacher look at their work. They can record work for themselves, and it becomes available to their parents, but there are ways that they can share the work with their parents and with their teachers to get feedback if they like. Harry, do you want to just take a moment to say something about just within maybe a minute or so, the process of building these units and what you think free learning offers?
Flexible learning, sure.
Flexible
So
learning,
these
sorry.
units, a lot of these weren't mine. We originally built these as part of an ad hoc system that we used during the first campus closure here in Hong Kong. It was my job to really transfer all these units into Gibbon, but also to sort of clean them up and make sure they were all good and set up. And I think the interesting thing about a flexible learning unit is, and I was talking with our head of school, Toby Newton, about this probably back in like September, is that they really allow us to do some more esoteric things with learning. They really allow us to branch out our curriculum and teach some more exciting stuff. And they also allow us to really, because there are some, like, for example, I was working last week, I won't go on for too long, on a unit about using iNaturalist in conjunction with a GoPro camera. And that is not only a really neat and useful thing to learn, it's also something that was necessary for a part of the curriculum. So you can use flexible learning units as little things that you can use to sort of get everyone on the same page in part of the curriculum.
Yep, great. I think that's a really fantastic summary. Thanks, Harry.
No problem.
Hopefully what you see here is a really nicely arranged, enticing visual grid. Harry spent a lot of time on the visuals. You can see that there's different categories of units. There's some quicker ones, some longer ones, and students can browse around and find things that suit them. There's a surprise me button that takes you into a random unit, and so kids can have some fun just digging around. And that's part of what we want to do here is try and make learning fun and enjoyable, and just entice kids to come in and have a go. It doesn't have to be high pressure. It doesn't always have to be performative. You're not doing this thing for someone else. You're just learning because, you know, learning is amazing.
Nice. And it might be helpful to note that this is just the way we've set it up for our school. So these are the categories that we've customized for ICHK, and we've set it up for students, but it could also be used for, let's say, a PD system or other ad hoc learning. You could just set up learning that's available for parents, for teachers, or even for students that is just available without any prerequisites or any additional constraints on it. Information available for them to work through, look at the links, and learn something, I guess, just in time learning.
Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, just-in-time learning is a concept that we talk about in the same way that Toyota pioneered just-in-time production of automobiles and stopped stockpiling parts that, you know, went rusty. Just-in-time learning is about learning how to learn and then being able to learn when you need to know something, rather than stockpiling knowledge in your head, which tends to be how schools go about things. Great. So we've Kelvin, hopefully that answers your question about the difference between free learning and flexible learning. Hopefully you've all had a chance to see the range of different modules that are available. There's definitely untapped potential in the Gibbon module space. Gibbon certainly doesn't do everything, although there's something like 46 or 48 modules available in total between the core and additional. So that's a lot of functionality, but there's doubtless things that it could do that it doesn't. So one of the things that's covered in our documentation is module development. And although the documentation isn't super thorough there's enough to get you started. Now, to do this, you need to be or become a PHP developer with web design and database skills. But should you ever want to, you can look at module development, and you'll find that there is a starter module that you can download that contains some of the core files that and folders that establish a module. And there's some information on module translation, module hooks, and things like that. we'd love to support people who build modules, and so the forum's a great place to ask for help. We also have a developer Slack channel where Gibbon developers chat, and so if you are a developer or you have an interest in becoming a developer, either on the core or on modules or on themes, you could join us there. All right, I think, Brian, yes.
Sorry, I don't know if it was, well, okay. So I noticed that the extended modules or the additional ones are in the same directory as your core ones. Is there any problems when you do updates of Gibbon?
It can be potentially problematic if you're updating locally through your file system, like dragging and dropping files. And actually some systems like Drupal keep core and additional modules separate. In some ways, yes, it would be nice to do that in Gibbon. However, if you're using, say, an FTP application, there are settings to avoid overriding things that aren't in the new version. But yes, you do need to be careful that you don't override your additional modules. If you were to, you'd start getting errors, and it would be as simple as then dropping them back in. You wouldn't lose any data because no data is stored in the module, but you'd have to just drop the files back in. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, no, that's good. The data admin one, is that so I can actually make my own custom imports?
So data admin is the module that originally contained Sandra's import system when she first started building it, and some other tools for taking snapshots of the system and things like that. Subsequently, we moved imports into the Gibbon core, and so they came out of that module. So there's a few things left there, but I think, Sandra, were you talking about integrating the final bits, and then what's the plan for that module?
Yes, the remaining pieces will probably be integrated or moved into more of a developer tools module, which we're thinking of. The custom imports are available in the core as well. So if you did create a custom import, it's just a matter of learning that that YML, that YAML syntax, to be able to create a new file. The system will automatically detect if there's a new file in the system, and it'll display those custom imports at the top. So that's built into the core. You don't necessarily need data admin to be able to do that.
All right. In terms of administering modules, like module settings, this is a little bit different. In Gibbon, you get used to going to admin to do all of your settings and your adjustments, but the additional modules contain their own settings. So for example, if you're looking in free learning and you want to look at the settings, you'll find them here under manage settings. So do just be aware that there'll be a whole suite of settings in most of the modules that let you customize the way that they work. I think other than that, that's probably all I have to say on modules and extending Gibbon. I guess the extend page at the moment, as I said earlier, is exclusively modules at the moment. There'll be themes coming, so it's more than modules. And the other way to extend Gibbon, of course, is to program the core. That's something that we're really keen to have, more developers who get involved in Gibbon. But at the same time, if you change your own Gibbon core and don't share those changes back with us, you run the risk of no longer being able to update your Gibbon core as we release updates. So that's something that does take some careful consideration, and is probably a suitable topic for another training day in its own, like how you get into core Gibbon development. Yeah. Does anyone have any further questions, ideas of modules that could be developed, thoughts about extending Gibbon? If not, we might call time on this session. Oh, yeah, Sandra?
I know it'd be nice for a very quick break before the next session. However, another way to extend Gibbon, and if I can, take over screen sharing from Ross, is there are some built-in custom fields settings built into Gibbon. So internally, without changing any code, there are some ways to extend Gibbon. And something that we've been working on, I'll give you a quick preview, but a lot of these things are also available currently in the system. So if I go into System Admin, previously, if I went into User Admin, there was a section called Manage Custom Fields. As a quick sneak preview for you, I'll show you, we've actually been extending the custom field system to work in many different areas of the system and not just users, which will allow schools to really customize a lot of the different areas of the system. Because schools tend to have additional data that is specific to them that might not be relevant for the entire core, but something they can use themselves. So we've actually now moved custom fields into System Admin. You will find the ones that exist there currently will function very similar, but you'll see that we've added some extra features. So when I come into custom fields here, we can see that there's some different types of custom fields going on. The previous ones that you could create were under person. So those are custom fields created for users. But we've actually now begun extending the system so you can add custom fields to other areas of the system, including medical forms, first aid, staff, and eventually we'll be able to add custom fields to courses and classes, to behavior, to individual needs, to allow schools to customize those things. So without changing any code, if your school did need something, let's say they needed an extra variable added, I can see under user admin, if I were go into my user, there's a number of fields in here, but inevitably you will run into the fact that your school needs some sort of additional piece of data that isn't included in these fields. And this you can do by creating custom fields. This is a system that's currently built into the system. It's a system that we're just extending to now work for other areas of the system as well. So if you were to come in here, you could define custom fields that are available. You can see I've got a lot because I was working on developing them, but we can see test checkbox here matches this checkbox that I've created here. And it might be something that you add additional things that you need data collected from different people in the system. If I click on this, I can see some of the configuration for this custom field. Some of the layout here you'll see has changed a little bit from version 21. We're looking at version 22 here. There's a little bit of a preview of what's coming up. So I can check whether this field is required or not. I can see who it applies to. So this is something that all the people in the system except for other apply to, where it shows up in the system, whether it's required on the data updater, the application form, or other areas of the system. And I can configure those fields. What we've been adding in the most recent version is a whole lot more types of fields that you can add to the system, including things like file uploads. So if there's a specific type of file that you need attached to different areas of the system, let's say in medical or in staff, you can add file uploads, as well as a lot more types of the options of text, including rich text editors to add data into the system. We're also working on customizing to be able to choose where in the system it'll show up. So theoretically, you could be able to add a custom field under a specific existing heading rather than it showing up at the bottom of the field. Some of this is a sneak preview, but some of this does currently exist in version 21 and prior to that, and that's under the user admin manage custom fields section. But that is another way to extend and customize Gibbon, is to use some of the built-in tools, including string replacement and other tools that are kind of already built in.
Fantastic, thanks, Sandra. I think I've been watching the new custom fields changes emerge over the last few days, flying out of Sandra's laptop, and I think that they're, along with the theme, they're going to be a real headline for version 22. The amount of extensibility and flexibility they give is really fantastic. So Gibbon's funny because it's a project that's been going for so long. There are definitely times when it becomes more stable, and there are definitely times when we make more changes. And those are good. The stable times lets everyone catch their breath and catch up and lets the system settle down. And the versions when there are more changes lets us extend the system. And so it's nice to see in version 22, there's some exciting new things coming along. Kelvin asked a question, Islam asked a question about what about improving Moodle plugin or providing tutorials on how to do it. I think there's definitely scope for improving the Moodle plugin. At the moment, it's a very simple synchronization tool that goes one way to Moodle and doesn't ever bring data back. And certainly it could be more completely documented. There is some documentation on our website that walks you through the process, but it's a bit out of date. The challenge here is that I built this module even though I never use Moodle and I'm not a fanatic of Moodle, I built it as a proof of concept and because several people asked for it, but I have no real vested interest in maintaining it. And I think Sandra's in the same boat. So we kind of keep it alive and we keep it kicking, but it's not a priority and it's just not what excites us. But should the right person come along, and this is a joy of open source, should that Moodle Gibbon lover step forward and say, yes, I want to program this, I want to improve it, then there's plenty of potential for that. Our resource.
Thanks for that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Is there any other learning management system that Gibbon supports?
No, there isn't. At the moment, an API for sort of integration is something we've discussed in the past. The reason Gibbon doesn't is that I'm somewhat skeptical of a lot of what learning management systems do in terms of what I consider good learning. And so what we've tried to build into Gibbon is the structures to support learning in school without pushing everything online. Now, obviously, at the moment with Zoom school or whatever online school you're doing, well, everything is online. And
yes, exactly.
Yeah, Gibbon can do a lot of that.
Currently, the situation is, we've moved like 100% here in Qatar. It's like some places are 100% online. So I find it's like too difficult to maintain both systems. So it's really difficult now. I know that Gibbon is amazing, honestly. I tried to use it, but when I moved online, it was like I had to stop using it and move to another LMS in order to maintain, contacting with my students and support the team. That's the main idea.
Yes, yeah, and I mean we've used certain external tools to allow us to add more interactivity into our Gibbon lesson plans and things like that. So we're still using Gibbon as our main tool, but I do understand there are certain ways of teaching and learning, especially if you want quizzes and various learning activities that Gibbon doesn't do, and so integration could be useful there. So sorry, it's not working out in quite the way you'd like at this time.
I know. Yeah. One more idea. Sorry for interrupting you, but one more idea. Have you thought of integrating something like H5P? There is a tool called H5P for quizzes. I don't know. It might be.
We looked at this. We looked at this, and we couldn't. Well, not that we couldn't quite figure it out. But I think we actually. When I say we, I mean I mostly. I looked at this because Ross asked me to. But I was looking at this, and I think we figured out that it wasn't quite the right thing for integrating into Gibbon.
Yeah, and I think
I got it.
Yeah, I think what Harry and the conclusion we came to, and this is all very subjective. It all comes down to how you approach teaching and learning and what your philosophies are. And in some ways, I'm quite an unconventional teacher. We just decided it wasn't the tool that we wanted to integrate at that time. That's not to say it wouldn't work for other teachers and it doesn't add value, but yeah, that was something that the conclusion we came to on that front. Sandra's got something to add here.
Yeah, I think also working with different schools, there's definitely, it's very exciting when you find out everything that Gibbon can do, but there is a bit of a danger in Gibbon trying to replicate everything that everything in the world does. So there definitely is room for integrations, but there can be a slippery slope. We are a pretty small team still, and we have limited resources, so we can't always try and do everything and be everything. And the more we build, the more it needs maintained. So definitely as Gibbon's maintainer, I've been working through the code base to update it and improve it, but the more features we add, the more those features need maintained. So we try to be very conscious of what goes into Gibbon. I think an API is definitely on our list, and if it's open enough and flexible enough, it'll enable integration to other systems, but we don't quite have the resources to be maintaining specific integrations to other systems. But the beauty of it being open source is that people are capable and able to jump in and do what they need to do with Gibbon. So they could build a module to help them extend that, or they could work with Gibbon or work with us if they had a developer to help make those changes.
I think that's clear. Thank you so much. You are doing amazing work, by the way. I'm not underestimating Gibbon. I'm just trying to share ideas and know, the way you are doing. Yeah. Thank you for all the hard work, honestly.
That's all right. We really appreciate your positive input, and it's great to hear that, you know, Gibbon has been able to help you. I just can't echo enough what Sandra is saying. At Gibbon, and I'll speak more about sustainability in the future later on, because there are some changes in the pipeline in terms of our legal status and things like that, which is very exciting and very positive. But you know, Gibbon is a volunteer labor of love. When I started writing it, I had a full head of hair. I no longer have any hair, and I don't think that's a coincidence, to be honest. At the same time, my family has produced 2 children, and that might have contributed, but I think it's mostly Gibbon. And so we love Gibbon, and we love the community, and we want to support as much as we can. But as Sandra said, we're wary of our own limitations and our own resources, and we appreciate that you understand that as well. So all part of what makes the Gibbon community very special, I think, that kind of understanding. But yeah, your suggestions, Islam, are most appreciated as well.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we'll wrap this one early, about 20 minutes early. And I think Sandra and I will probably both just shut our cameras and mics off. We've got a couple things to get on with. And then we'll be back at 12:45. And we're hoping a couple other members of the core team will join us. Hopefully they'll be able to make it. They're in different time zones doing different things. Hopefully you'll get to meet some of those people. What we'll be doing is telling a little bit of the Gibbon backstory, talking about the future and a few other things to do with that. And then just a final chance for questions and answers. And we'll all then say our farewells. So we'll start that at 12:45. 20 minutes. All right, so feel free just to hang out in the meantime. Thanks.